In this video, let's look at how to make a time series line graph using Google Sheets. First step, of course, open up Google Sheets. Second step, enter the data in that you want to in a graph. So what I have here is data representing profit earned by the widget company, just a made-up company since 2010. And I'm going to also mention here that profit is given millions of dollars. So I have the year in column A and I have the profit in column B. All right, first step in terms of making the chart, highlight that data. So I'm going to highlight it with using my mouse. And then I'm going to go back to insert in the top and I'm going to insert a chart. Now, Google Sheets is going to take a guess at what it thinks is your best option for a chart. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's kind of like, let's see what happens. Stay up in the dark. If I click on chart, hey, there we go. We've got a line graph. Okay, so this is actually, or Google Sheets calls it a line chart. This is pretty good. This gives us a nice option. Now, there are some things to make this look better. First off, this is based on individual years of data, and the line is connecting that data. So one of the things we like to show when you have data for individual years and the line is just literally connecting it, but there is nothing technically in between, like there's nothing halfway in between 2010 and 2011, is we like to actually have dots in the places where the data actually exists. That helps someone to see that the data only occurs at certain points, and the line is just to help you see a trend in that data. The other thing is we don't have any titles on this graph. So we're going to want to alter this graph a bit to actually see all that. Now, as soon as we have created the chart, Google Sheets will bring up this chart editor. Again, if you accidentally click away, you won't see the chart editor anymore. You can click back on the chart and then the three dots on the upper right-hand corner will bring up a menu where you can click on Edit Chart to bring back that chart editor. First off, setup. If you don't have the right chart type, if you didn't get what you wanted, you would want to go ahead and change that graph, okay? And there are different line graphs, there are different bar graphs, column graphs, pie charts, that kinds of things. Even a scatter plot. I'll just show you what a scatter plot looks like. A scatter plot is when you only see the data without it being connected with lines. Now we want the dots, okay, and I'm going to show you how to get the dots, but we also want the lines. The lines help you see the trend of what's happening with the data. So I'm going to go back to a line chart, which was what we had to begin with. And I'm going to show you how we can customize that so we also see the dots. So first off, click on Customize. We do want some chart titles. Let's start there. So with chart titles, we want to, first off, a title for the entire graph. Remember, this represents profit. So I'm probably would say something like profit for the widget company since 2010. Okay, so there's a nice title. I might want to make that bold to have it stand out, and I might want to center it using the title format area down below in this area. So I've done both of those two things. The other things I want titles on are the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. So you can come up to this menu. We had chart title, but if you click on this, you have other options like a chart subtitle. So you wanted to have a little bit more information about the widget company, you could put a subtitle in. But I just want to concentrate on the horizontal axis and the vertical axis titles. So horizontal axis, that is the year. And we can actually literally just say year. Okay. And notice that's already centered. I might want to make it bold. And as you type these things in, you'll notice that your chart changes as you do that. I also want the vertical title axis. So I come back over to this menu, choose vertical axis title. And then this time I need to be a little more specific. My vertical axis goes from 0 to 6. Now remember, what do those numbers represent? They represent profit. And it's not just profit in terms of single dollars, like that's not saying $6 or $4 or $2. This is profit in millions of dollars. So I would want to actually put that in, millions of dollars. That way, the reader knows that's not just $2, not just $4, not just $6. The other thing is sometimes profit is given in thousands of dollars. So you need to be very specific in your titles so that someone reading this can understand. And I'm going to bold that again, just to make it a little easier to see. So here I've got titles on my graphs. What else would I maybe want to do? You can also change the color before I leave. There's options on color for all of these titles. Other things that we might want to do is change the grid lines. Okay, right now, the grid lines on the horizontal axis is going every 2 years. Maybe I want to show it for every year. So in the horizontal axis is time, so that would be horizontal axis. I could use a step which tells you how often you actually show the year. I could step that by 1 year instead of 2 years. And notice as soon as I do that, I'm seeing every single year throughout the graph. I could also go to 5 years if you want it less cluttered. I think it looked pretty good with either 2 or 1. I'll go back to 2, which is what the Google Sheets gave me to begin with. You can also choose to have grid lines that are kind of minor grid lines. And I can make a minor grid line every once. And what that does is it doesn't give you a title, but it gives you a light line so you can kind of see things more clearly. We also might want to do this with the vertical axis. Maybe instead of stepping it by 2, step it by 1. And you could even do a minor grid line where you actually have more in there. So you could step it by 0.5 if you want, like 500,000 is what that represents. And notice what we have here are little lines, even though it's not labeling every 500,000, it's got a line at the 500,000 area. That can make it easier for somebody to see what's happening on this graph. So that's how you can make the grid lines make the graph easier to read. Now, I also mentioned that we were going to look at putting those little dots in. So to actually see little points to see the actual data values. Now, to do that, let's take a look at some options here. So in the style chart, we have border colors. That's not what we want. So always explore. I am not as familiar with, here we go. So here we have the line series, and the line is given in blue. So I could change the color of that line. I could even make it dashed. I'll just show that. Let's leave it solid. But what I really wanted to show you was that for the data points, you can do point size. So you can choose a point size of 7. 2 is pretty small. Let's try 7. And notice what it does is it gives you a circle there for each data point within the line. So that way you're seeing that the line is just kind of connecting the data points to make it easier to see. Now it automatically gives you a circle, but you can choose a triangle as the data point, a star, a hexagon. I think a circle is probably the easiest thing to kind of see on the graph. So these are things that can make it a lot easier to see a graph and read it if you're the person reading it in a paper. Labels for your axes, labels for the overall graph, adjusting your grid lines and the step on your grids. And then finally, in a time series line graph like this, actually putting dots into your lines so that you actually see where the data point is. So again, all of that can be done by looking at these options under Customize for your chart editor. Okay. All right, last step thing, if you want to put this into a document, you would click on the graph once you have it, then click on the triple dot here, and then you could copy the chart and then paste it into some document that you want to put this into for a paper. All right, that's it. That's how you can create a time series line graph.